Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Hope you guys are doing well out there. I wanted to make another video giving you guys some updated information about an active pattern that is looking likely for this coming work week. Really, at the end of this week, there's going to be a lot of cold air that comes down from the north, active storm track, and we could run the risk of a winter storm threat, and it could be kind of a multi-risk kind of setup. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go over all the latest information that we have from the Climate Prediction Center, the actual experts, which are honking the horn at this. They have been over the last few days, all the way since last week. So this is legit. It is a legit air mass that's coming down. It's going to meet that active storm track. We're going to speak on all the model guidance as far as what it's showing from overnight into this morning. And then we'll go over how cold that air potentially could be for areas of the central and eastern U.S. And then we'll just kind of nerd out with you guys for a little bit and explain what's driving this setup. This will be very cold air. This is Arctic air. This is a true cold air source. Well, the cold air is really coming from a true cold air source from the north, from the Arctic. So we're going to break this down in great detail. If you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. If anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. If you're a first-time viewer, this is not my usual setup. I'm actually out of town right now. And just want to give you guys some updated information because this is definitely an interesting pattern for winter weather fans, that's for sure. So first thing we're going to go over is the Climate Prediction Center outlook. This is this is from actual experts. So this isn't just me or somebody else just kind of blowing smoke, if you will, about this crazy cold pattern upcoming. This is legitimate. These are from the folks at the National Weather Service. So this is the Climate Prediction Center, and this is from day 6 to day 10. So the last day or so, heck, I think this is just pretty much the first several days of December. Below average temperatures are predicted. There's an 80% chance of temperatures being below average in this purple area. I mean, but just honestly, just focus on the fact that this large area in blue is a pretty decent chance of below average temperatures the first several days of December. And I mean, we sit here and we can look at the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook too. I mean, this is getting pretty deep into December at this point. I mean, the first like 10 days of December, you might as well say, the central and especially the eastern half of the U.S. looks not only below average temperature wise, but well below average temperature. And, you know, the wild thing is if you look at the week 3 to 4 outlook, okay, this is extending, I mean, pretty much all the way out to Christmas. I mean, there is a shot at least average to even below average temperatures for the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic now. So this is pretty wild. You know, once upon a time we thought December was going to be quite warm, and it still could end up being warm, but at least the first 10 days of December for the eastern half of the U.S. especially looks to be below average temperature-wise. So, you know, if you like the vibe of colder conditions around the holidays like myself, then you're certainly going to enjoy this pattern coming up. Now, you kind of mix that to overlap and underlap or whatever you will with the chances of precipitation. Now, that 6 to 10 day outlook of chance precipitation is below average in this area. Now, this is extending kind of after Thanksgiving. We're going to talk about this Thanksgiving storm potential that a lot of people are chattering about in the weather world. So this is kind of extending past that, but I do just want to show you that. But, you know, you look at the 8 to 14 day precipitation outlook, and as of right now, it does not look very active as far as storms, but I think this can change, and I'm going to go over all the latest model guides, in fact, starting right now. So the first thing we'll go over, I know this is kind of small on your screen. Like I said, if you're a first-time viewer, I'm away from my house. The setup is normally better. I know this is only showing up in 720, for example. Hopefully you can see it pretty well. But we're going to go over the central U.S. first. Timestamps will be up throughout the entire video, and then we'll switch gears to the eastern U.S. What are we looking at for the central U.S.? We're going to start off by looking at Tuesday morning, so tomorrow morning. Not a whole lot going on. What we're going to watch for is some energy that comes out the Rockies into the central U.S. Now, once upon a time, this was showing a pretty big storm system last week for this time frame. Well, we're getting into Wednesday. There's a lot of precipitation, but this low doesn't really get going until it starts to get, into the Mid-South, the Ohio Valley. A lot of moisture in the Midwest. The cold air is not caught up with the moisture yet, but we're getting some snow trying to break out on the northern end of the system as we're getting into like Thanksgiving Eve night into the morning of Thanksgiving. after we get into Thanksgiving, you know, we're going to start to get some cold air that drops down. We're probably going to get some weird alerts like this. This is my wife's computer, actually, so you might get some weird pop-ups or something like that. I haven't had a chance to mess with the settings to make that not happen in the video, but so if you see that, sorry for the distraction. But we're getting into Thanksgiving afternoon. Look at the snow breaking out. You know, if you like a snowy Thanksgiving, you might have some flakes flying around up here in the northern terrain of the country. But you see that 540 line, you can tell cold air is diving down. And, you know, we get into this coming Friday. We start to get into Saturday. Look at the snow breaking out across the Midwest, the upper Midwest. Not a snowstorm by any means, but definitely some flakes flying around the last day of November. And then this is the time frame I'm really watching. As we start to get into the first day of December, which is Sunday, we start to see a lot of precipitation building down here. There's a lot of cold air on top. In fact, so much cold air, so much of a cold air press that it's actually suppressing the storm track to the south. Okay, and so we keep going here, and we're getting deeper into first day here, and we're getting into the afternoon of the first. That moisture actually gets suppressed, and if that moisture right here was to keep going north, it would turn into a winter weather event across the mid-south. But it gets suppressed down. That's not a forecast. None of this is a forecast this far out. We can still have some tweaks here and there. But, you know, we take it all the way to day 10, and there's not a whole lot going on, right? You know, but we look at the GFS, same kind of time frame, starting tomorrow, not a whole lot going on. We get into a Wednesday. Look at the snow falling maybe across areas of the Rockies and the Laramie Range, for example, and the Central High Plains. We got some snow flying around, and then we start to get into Thanksgiving. This is interesting. This is definitely a difference as far as the short term. For example, for Thanksgiving Day, we got some flurries and snow showers, light snow flying around as far south as northern Oklahoma. Heck, even in Missouri, Kansas, eastern Colorado. But remember, if you look at the Euro, just some snow way up here. So, that's definitely some disagreement in the shorter term. And then the cold air press is a little bit more aggressive on this first. There's going to be multiple waves of cold air. And we're going to talk about Tennessee here in a second with this one. But, you know, that system moves on off to the eastern U.S. We get into this coming weekend. Here's a little bit of snow coming down with that really cold air across areas in the Midwest and the plains. No big storm system, though. And then we start to get, after day 7, all the way into day 10. And there is some precipitation trying to bubble up down here. As we're getting into the 3rd to 4th of December, I'm going to keep this going, but it never can quite, you know, build into that cold air. If you're a winter weather fan, cold weather fan, and you're kind of wanting some winter weather for the Deep South. And I will tell you, for my folks in the Deep South, I'm going to talk more about this as we get to the Eastern U.S. timestamp. This is a pattern that could support winter weather in the South. It's just, you need everything in the kitchen sink to work out for you. That don't make any sense, but you get what I'm saying. You need everything to work out for you for winter weather in the South. But, you know, you're starting to get into a Wednesday. Look at the snow falling across Colorado. Could certainly see some snow flakes flying around if you're traveling across the Rockies in Colorado. And then we start to get into Thursday afternoon. None of this precipitation shows up on the Canadian model or the Euro, really. The Canadian kind of favors more of the Euro with some snow up here in Minnesota. And, you know, just kind of breeze through the Canadian a little bit quicker here. But look at the snow, a little bit of snow showing up as we're getting into this coming Saturday across the Midwest. That light snow you see here and across the northern plains. And then we do start to get all the way past day 7. And we start to get in between that day 7 and day 10 time frame, like the 1st and the 4th of December. And that's what I'm talking about. Big cold air press, wintry mix showing up. And it's not a forecast, Wintry mix showing up for Louisiana, areas of Texas down here. But the pattern would support it. And then we go all the way out to the afternoon of December 3rd, which is pretty far out. And it shows a winter storm developing with precipitation basically overrunning that shallow cold air. And something like this I could see happening. Okay, so what about the snowfall? What about the snow signal here? Okay, this is the Euro ensemble. This is in 48-hour increments. Okay, so we keep this going. We're getting into tomorrow. I'm sorry, this is into Wednesday. All right, a little bit of a signal for snow right here. Not much, half an inch, okay? And then that signal starts to get louder, and this is in 48-hour periods. That signal starts to get louder across areas of the Midwest as we're getting into Thanksgiving morning. And what's wild here is there's not a lot showing up on the actual operational run for that supports that, okay? 48-hour period, so you're going to see that blue disappear here. And then what happens after we get into this weekend, there's a signal here for a little bit of northern stream energy to dive down with this trough. A little bit of snow showing up for the Midwest. And then we start to get into the 1st, into the 2nd. I mean, that's just a very broad signal, which tells me, to me, that signal screams that there's going to be a lot of energy flying down with this dip in the jet stream. And then we start to get into day 10, and we'll kind of stop it right there. So not an overly loud signal for snow for the Euro ensemble across the middle of the country. And then we do look at the GFS ensemble here. This is the newest one. There's that signal for snow across the Rockies as we're getting into Wednesday. Okay, I keep thinking today is Monday, but today is Sunday. But you know, we're starting to get into Thursday morning. The signal begins to increase across the middle of the country. This is definitely different than the Euro ensemble. And then there is a signal for a winter weather event, Thanksgiving into your Friday across the middle of the country. But we just need to continue to kind of fine-tune that. And then there continues just to be a signal across the country for just what I think you see these 0.4s, 0.2s. I think that's just energy that's going to be around with the actual lower pressure and the dip in that trough of low pressure diving out. I think we're going to have a lot of shallow moisture with the Arctic air. And then there's a little bit of a higher signal as we're getting into the last day of November, December 1st, right here in the Midwest for a little bit of snow. And then that kind of trails off. And I think this is as far out as the ensemble run wants to go for us right here. Let me see. Let's look. No, it goes out further. But there is a signal here. I mean, there's a little small signal for some snow pretty far south between the day 7 and day 10 range. But, you know, we go all the way out to day 10. And we'll stop it here because things get a little fuzzy. But from the central U.S. breakdown, what I would take from this is there's not an overly large signal for any kind of big storm between now and the next 10 days. And I think that's just because you have such a big press of cold air to the south. It suppresses the storm track pretty far south. Now, the eastern U.S. is a different story. It's a different animal here. All right, so we get into tomorrow. First storm system, which kind of is a big cutter, which means the low pressure is cutting across the country, kind of helps aid to drop the cold air down. This will bring mainly rain across the eastern U.S., maybe some interior New England, Northeast snowfall. And then system number 2 comes in Thanksgiving Eve into Thanksgiving, and this is Thanksgiving morning. This is a huge storm system for the eastern U.S. Thanksgiving morning. This will cause travel issues, a lot of rain, could be a winter storm for certain areas. Like, for example, the Ohio Valley, northern Ohio and the Euro, getting snow, northern Indiana, southern lower Michigan getting snow, look at the interior New England, Northeast area, getting snow, and then this turns into a big interior New England, Northeast winter storm. Some of the same areas that got a lot of heavy wet snow a couple days ago could get it again. Cold air trying to dive down here. And we got a big rainstorm along the I-95 corridor. This would not support snow. But this could be a big storm for Atlantic Canada, so we'll break that down in more detail here in the next day or two. Cold air dropping down, northwest flow will get going here. You see these sections right here getting some snow in the Appalachian Mountains. Great Lakes will start popping off that lake effect snow with such cold air coming down, those relatively warm bodies of water. Of course, the difference in the temperatures is really gets the lake effect snows going on this time of the year, and we're certainly going to start to get it the last couple of days of November with so much cold air spilling down. So look at that lake effect snow. Big winter storm up here. If you live in interior New England area, interior Northeast, you could have a big winter storm on the way for Thanksgiving into that Friday. But look at the lake effect snow. This is going to start to add up. Could be a very long event with so much cold air. So what happens as we get into next weekend? Okay, here comes another area of energy. You're going to see multiple areas of energy to the north. Energy up here. Look at this Gulf moisture down here. This is the first day of December. Something weird can happen in this area. I made a post about it last night. We're getting a lot of energy to the north. Getting that lake effect snow. I mean, the lake effect snows are still going, guys. I mean, they could get cranking like around Thanksgiving, the day after, maybe the day after that. It might just go all the way into December for a period of time. And there is moisture down here. But look, the 540 line hanging out so far south tells me there's a lot of cold air that basically this dip in the jet is suppressing the cold air, the high pressure, I should say, is suppressing moisture so far south it can't get going. But we get into day 10. Look at the lake effect snow still going up here. Okay? And, is any moisture going to kind of pop off? And here it is. As we're starting to get to the first several days of December, look how close it gets down here now. This is over 300 hours out. But the pattern would support an early season winter weather event for even areas further south with such cold air diving down. And look at this. Look at this other area of energy that dives down. So things can get weird even for the south. I am not, throwing the south out the equation of winter weather with this. And same thing with the GFS. First system's warm. Second system, much more suppressed on the GFS. That's a huge difference. And that's why I showed snow in Texas and Oklahoma on the GFS compared to the Euro, which cuts all this energy as we're getting into Thanksgiving much further north. So, the GFS doesn't show really anything for Thanksgiving on the Northeast. The Euro does. GFS suppresses this moisture. That actually wants to try to bring a little snow Thanksgiving like night into Friday morning across the southern Alps. I mean, look at the little blue showing up, all rain for the southeast. But look, it gets weird. I mean, across northern North Carolina Friday morning. That's a huge difference in two reliable operational runs here, the GFS and the Euro. And then that kind of takes off, does not end up being a winter storm for the Northeast. But same thing, you still get that lake effect snow up here. And then here comes some energy diving down. You can't see it well. We would have to pull up the 500 millibar chart. But you keep on going. It gets quiet for the last couple days of December, first couple days of December, last couple days of November, first couple days of December. But there is a lot of energy in this trough. Okay, is there any energy that's going to get picked up? We get to day 8, day 9, day 10. And here it comes. You got something trying to creep up into the picture here. It just doesn't. The cold air press is just too strong. But listen, even though you don't see anything in this time frame right here, something goofy can pop up. And then the Canadian model kind of first system, second system, sort of in between the Euro and the GFS. Not as amped up as the Euro, not as suppressed as the GFS, but does, and it's not as cold either. Okay, big rainstorm for the I-95 corridor, Thanksgiving into Friday, and then a lot of cold air starts to get the lake effect snows going. And then, there's that energy. Here's a little bit of light snow getting into the last day of November, first day of December. And look at that snow in the mountains. You got Gulf moisture hanging out down here. Is anything going to get going? The last little frame, trying to get some moisture down here. So what about the snow signal on the Euro ensemble for this? Same thing, 48-hour periods. Here we go, Wednesday into Thanksgiving, right? Euro ensemble is pretty loud for a winter weather event across areas of the Midwest, the Great Lakes region, and the interior New England Northeast area. I mean, that's a pretty loud snowfall signal, several inches. And then you can see the lake effect snows ongoing. You'll consistently see the blues, the purples, and the pinks in this area because the lake effect snow is still just popping off. We get a week out, right? We're starting to get these little small, it's a very broad, but inch-wise, it's not even an inch really. The signal is small, but it's a large signal, if that makes sense. It's over a large area, but as far as a lot of heavy snow, not that high. But we start to even get some weird signals down here, and I wouldn't call it a signal, just some runs showing up for this area, and it just gets really scattered about at that point. Now, the GFS ensemble, here we go, right? First signal misses, second signal, not as loud as the Euro ensemble, but folks, there is still a snowfall signal Thanksgiving to kind of Saturday across even the mid-Atlantic, the Northeast. Just not as loud as the Euro ensemble. And then we start to get day 7 into day 10. You're getting this little bit of a signal here. I know you're not seeing anything for the south, folks, but in this pattern, that can change fast. Such a large amount of cold air coming down, and then we start to get into day 10 and beyond. I know you don't see anything overly crazy about that, but things can change in this pattern. When so much energy is suppressed, a lot of times it trends further north. What about cold air? Temperatures compared to average are started off for tomorrow evening. and you keep going. First push of cold air, not that potent. It's the second push that kind of comes down that really drops these temperatures well below average. So this is all the way into Black Friday morning, Friday the 29th, and well below average temperatures. Well, I mean about 8 to 12 degrees below average. Starts to dive down to the Midwest. I mean, you're 20 to 30 degrees below average in the Dakotas, North Dakota. But you notice the orientation of the below average temperatures is really stretching, I would say, more into the eastern U.S. Still getting below average temperatures across the middle of the country, but the orientation of this trough diving down does not support Arctic air really far south. Okay, this is actually pointed more towards the eastern U.S. So we're getting into it's the evening of the 30th of November. Look at this, 10 to almost 15 degrees below average stretching across this area, and for this time of the year, that's pretty nippy. Okay, but then you get past day 7, and it gets even colder. I mean, that's getting to 15 to 20 degrees below average in this area. How cold is that temperature-wise in your area? It just depends on what your average temperature is for this time of the year. But you go all the way to day 10, and it just keeps going. In fact, I mean, you extend this all the way out to like day 15, and I mean, below average temperatures dominate the central to eastern U.S. And talking about the eastern U.S., here comes the first push of cold air. Not that bad, a couple degrees below average for some. Then the big surge of warm air Thanksgiving morning across the southeast. Could be a warm Thanksgiving. And then as you're waking up for your Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, below average temperatures begin to kind of shift the pattern. And as we're getting into the end of this week, into this weekend, this is when below average temperatures settle in and move in for the long haul. So we're getting into this weekend, we're getting into Sunday, I mean, we're getting into next Monday. I mean, well below average temperatures. Hopefully you can see it pretty well. I mean, you're talking 10 to 20 degrees below average, and it just continues to reinforce itself. And then it just hangs around to the first week of December, well below average temperatures, guys. This pattern has some longevity to it. And it's all because we're getting a cold air source from the north. Where you see this ridge right here spiking up to Alaska. You got the blocking right here that might help lock the storm track in. We have to see about that. But you keep going. This trough really digs down and then anchors in. So this is about in the 7 to 9 day period. You see this spike in the ridge in the western U.S. ridging all the way up, showing up in the orange and the yellow and the red color all the way up to Alaska. You see this line, how it dramatically dips down. If you're going to get any kind of winter storm threat across the eastern U.S., you're going to need a tall spiking ridge called a positive PNA right here, and you're going to need the energy to really dive down. That'll allow it for the dip down, cold air on top, this big area of lower pressure, cold air storminess potential, and it hangs around with us. In fact, it re-extends itself, as we're starting to get, week into December. And in fact, the ridge actually spikes even more. Okay, this is a dramatic spike in the ridge and the jet stream up, and a dramatic drop right here, which tells me active storm track, cold air, wild stuff. And this is energy on the Euro Ensemble 500 millibar. So you see where the greens and the yellows, that's where there's a lot of northern stream energy in here. A lot of northern stream energy. What about your southern stream, which is down here? It's not as loud. If you get a connection between this and this, then you get some wild stuff that can happen. And, as we're starting to get a few days into December, there might start to become some connection here. But it's really, as of now, looks like a northern stream dominated pattern, but that can change. So that's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for bearing with me. Hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend, a great Sunday. If I said good Monday morning, I do apologize. Of course, just not the normal flow of things. But God bless all y'all. There's another email. Have a wonderful Sunday, and I'll talk to you again soon.